You're here, which means that you've found Spirit Crumbs, leading you to your inner light worker. I will be sharing how these tiny little hints from the universe have led me to where I am today. I hope that by hearing my story and the stories of others, you'll pick up your own spirit crumbs along the way that will lead you to somewhere magical. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Let's see where it takes us. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Spirit Crumbs. I am your host, Andrea McCallum, and I am an artist and a healer. Today, we are celebrating the new moon in Aquarius, and I decided to do a bit of a card pull and a reading for this new moon. Because tomorrow, February 2nd, is also a powerful portal for manifestation, I decided that it would be a good idea to kind of tap into that energy for this episode. Imbolc is also between these 2 days on February 1st to the 2nd, and that is the celebration of being halfway between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. So altogether, it's just a really powerful time right now to be looking at where we want to go, but also I feel like really treating it like a time to reflect and go inwards a little bit as well, because in order to know what we truly want from like the depths of our soul, we have to really be honest with ourselves and look at where we are now. The cards that I started with were one from the Animal Spirit deck, and I got the Hyena card. This is a fire card, and it also is an interesting one because it's talking about how we sometimes use humor and other things to mask how we're really feeling. So we may use it when there's conflict. We may just not want to be as upfront or vulnerable about our goals. And sometimes we do it so much that we actually forget how we truly feel because we start to identify with the humor or the sarcasm. And I feel like right now what that's really resonating with for me is just that energy of trying to please everyone and, the performative part of being in relationships and sharing on social media. And I think sometimes we also just don't want to say something out loud if we also don't believe we can do it. So we might have some really big goals, but if we don't actually believe it ourselves that we can do it, we might joke about it. But really, we have to put the energy into it that we want. So we have to take ourselves seriously. And that's what this card asks us to do. It asks us to start to take our own goals and dreams seriously. And it suggests that we do this through sobriety, which I think is either literal, taking away the coping mechanisms, but also just in that like sobering sense of like reality. And that brings us into the second card, which is the Pluto card from the Heavenly Bodies astrology deck by Lily Ashwell. And this one talks about how Pluto is all about death and rebirth. And I think for a new moon, we keep in mind that the new moon is actually in the dark phase of the moon. And this is when I feel it's, as much as it's a time for manifestation, it's also a time to really go within, like I said, to find what is truly your desire, and maybe more importantly, why that's your desire, and looking at your motivations for what you're doing. This card also talks about how rock bottom or really difficult periods are when we really get to know ourselves as well, because all of the external things start to make us look internally instead of, waiting till we have a clear idea. Sometimes we don't have a choice. Sometimes we have to just react in the moment when we're presented with these difficult situations. But the reason I think this card works so well with the hyena is that it's, again, reminding us that we don't have to live by these old stories. We don't have to identify with the past or how even we've presented ourselves in the past, we are allowed to change and transform. Transformation is the main theme of this card, and I think we can all agree that we don't make a lot of changes or experience a lot of transformation when we aren't actually participating actively in that change. I think that in order for that to happen, sometimes this goes back to other messages from our previous episodes, but sometimes we have to actually start to take action towards those dreams in order for them to manifest. And right now, with it being such a powerful time for manifestation, it is even more important to get really clear on what we want our story to be going forward. We can still release anything that is no longer in alignment for us. And the more we do this repeatedly, the more we begin to show up more authentically, and then we get to actually truly feel seen. Often if we're feeling like no one sees us, it's because we're not showing ourselves to them. And it's not like you have to share your full story or your full truth with everyone, but every time you just say yes to things that you don't want to do, or you laugh off your own goals, or you make up something that's smaller than what you really want, it's just all contributing to you not even being in touch with that true version of yourself. And then the next card that came up, the bottom was kind of more on the positive tone, like the other side of it, which is interesting because the hyena card is actually on like the quarter moon, where there's like half dark, half light. So this feels like we're shifting into like, once we start to move back into the light again, we have the Empress, the number 3 in the Light Seer's Tarot. And that card is all about about creation. And it's all about having this powerful time of creating and the support as well, knowing that you are on the right path, and that once you're choosing yourself, you're going to have a much easier time manifesting your dreams into reality and making them take shape. And I love that this is kind of coming through this transformation. It's like the butterfly stage. And I think we think sometimes it'll take a lot longer, but sometimes the most simple transformations and the most simple realizations can give us a really fast version of that cycle. And I think that's what we're looking at with this new moon energy. It seems really daunting if in the past you've had, months at a time in a dark night of the soul, but sometimes it's just actually having that powerful moment of realization when you actually sit in the stillness, given the opportunity, and make that realization for yourself. And then the next card is the 3 and the violet spirit cards from the Psychic Tarot, and it's partnerships and alliances. 2 cards actually came out together, and it's the 3 and the 4, which is the foundation and achievements cards. And because these are 2 consecutive cards and they came out together, I think it's kind of like one combined message, and they do have very similar themes in them. And so while the partnerships and alliances card is telling you to look for synchronicities, look for people that you can connect with to provide opportunities for the future, and then also making sure that there's a balance between both of your efforts. So if you feel like you're the only one giving, then it's not really in alignment. It's too much energy on your side and not enough in the partnership. And on the other hand, making sure you're not taking too much when you know you could be giving more in exchange. So it's just making sure that that is the energy behind any of these alliances or partnerships. And then the 4, foundation and achievements, is saying that you will be reaping what you've sowed, and you'll be seeing the manifestations that come from these efforts. And because these are together, I feel like this is just telling us how quickly this cycle might be taking place after this February 1st and 2nd kind of portal. And this card also does remind us that we need to be looking for signs and things to lead us forward into the next steps, and that nothing is ever stagnant. It just reminds us that this change is always happening. And I think that's really such a beautiful thing, since I'm feeling like this is a cycle. And I think because we started out with this letting go and transformation, it's just proof that this is an ongoing thing, but we are allowed to have this moment to appreciate what we've achieved until this point. And so if January has been a particularly difficult month for you, like it has been for me, and I know other people as well, then maybe this is just a moment, to sit in some fresh energy and allow yourself to release whatever patterns were coming up in January, and recognizing why and what part of your story that contributes to, what part of your identity that's attributed to, and why you're still holding on to it. Like, what are you gaining from keeping it, right? There's always a reason why you do that. It's like your ego, right? Your ego protects you as much as sometimes it prevents you from moving forward. It really is just trying to keep you safe. And so keeping in mind, if there's some patterns and conflict and things that have happened to you in the past that are coming up in the last month, maybe now it's time to actually acknowledge what that lesson is so that you can move forward. And with the foundation and achievements being the ending here, that's a 4. And so just keeping in mind that any of these partnerships and alliances or new things you're creating with the Empress energy, this new version of yourself, you're setting yourself up for success in the future. You're creating a foundation of what is your core principles, or what kind of agreements and contracts really work for you going forward. And so the next time this cycle comes up, it will be a lot smoother, because at least you'll have let go of some of those old patterns and you'll have that foundation. So you won't be completely rocked down to a rock bottom, but you'll still see that pattern of stagnation, transformation, and then like new beginnings come up again. And to keep in mind that those times don't need to be scary, and that we can actually invite them in because there's always something better on the other side. Personally, today I'm recording it on January 31st, and today is the day that I'm officially discharged from my bankruptcy. So for me, it's like a literal new start, and I'm really excited because I've been getting a lot of 1 cards, a lot of new beginnings, and just a lot of feelings and kind of like messages and downloads around starting something new. And because I'm not entirely sure, because I have so many things on the go, what that's relating to, I'm just being open to anything that comes my way. I've had a few people reach out, and I will be doing a couple of interview episodes on the podcast in the coming months, so we'll see what happens. This is a shorter episode because I'm still recovering from being sick for a couple weeks, so I didn't want to strain my voice too much, because I am doing the throat chakra recharge circle tonight. I won't be able to let you know on this episode how it went, but maybe in the following week I will. But I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm feeling a lot of energy building around that, and so I just want to save my voice for that, because it will be sitting together in the circle for an hour and a half. So I hope that this new moon energy and this 2-2 portal is a really beautiful and expansive time for you. We're going into Jupiter and Pisces, I believe, at the same time, which is another expander of luck and abundance. So really sit with yourself, and even if you don't normally write down your intentions or pay attention to these cycles, this might be a good time to just do that, especially if you weren't really feeling it at the January New Year's time. This might be a great time to just check in with yourself, and again, be really honest with yourself about what needs to change, what needs to leave your story, and what you would like to invite in. And then be on the lookout for the spirit crumbs to come, because they will. Once you declare what it is that you want, the opportunities and the people and the thoughts and the ideas will come to you. So I would love to hear how this new moon energy is feeling for you, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Spirit Crumbs. You can find me on Instagram for this podcast at Spirit Crumbs, or you can also find me at Concrete and Crystals for my own spiritual offerings and more tidbits about my own journey. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.